Section 4.6, we'll be examining the following questions on the pharmaceutical law, also known as the Counterfeit Medi-Crime Convention law, as well as the biomedicine law. So the first question is, which algorithm logic does a computer perpetrator use for ionizing the channels for drugs delivery to achieve the desired neuronal drugs infused cell state? The second question is, what is a diagnostic smart pill with a controller? The third question is, who is the drug tailor? The fourth question is, what is a pharmacokinetic parameter? How does a perpetrator alter a targeted brain using a brain circuit? And the fifth question is, how does a pharma perpetrator alter a targeted brain falsified therapy using a brain circuit? So this is the legal sampling, and it is also documented under the table section. It's organized in a table format so that it becomes very clear as to what are the legal laws and legal materials that I will be examining. So the first one is neuromodulation. That is the pharmaceuticals, the drugs delivery based on the real-time tissue states monitoring. Using under 4.6.1, the IBM model apparatus for delivering pharmaceuticals based on real-time monitoring of tissue states. We'll also be examining the pharmacokinetic parameterization tissue cells analysis. This is classified under in the WLC criminal technical materials and evidence under data protection law, revolving around the pharmacokinetic parameter. Also under pharmaceutical law or Medi-Crime law, which is also Counterfeit Medi-Crime law, which also can include Medi-Crime devices, including in-body Medi-Crime devices. And the third area of law is the biomedicine law that is contributed. So there are altogether 3 laws that I will be examining: data protection law, pharmaceutical law, which is also Medi-Crime law, or counterfeit Medi-Crime law, including Medi devices, as well as the biomedicine law, which are contributed. The second legal examination is the IBM neuromodulation model, dispensing drugs from a companion diagnostic link smart pill. I will also be examining neuromodulation, pharmacokinetic parameterization, and EEG brain vector. This is classified under pharmaceutical law, Medi-Crime law, counterfeit Medi-Crime devices, such as in this particular legal example and material. First, drugs dispatched from a diagnostic smart pill. Second, DNA sequencing. The second law I will be examining is the biomedicine law and key human rights The location of signing is in the Europe. And Smart Pill programmable release is the third aspect that I will be looking at legally under biomedicine law and the key human rights law. The fourth aspect is the controller. It's a handheld device, so I will be showing you a diagram that is in this IBM pattern, IBM neuromodulation model dispensing drugs from a companion diagnostic link smart pill, that there is a design or a diagram of a controller handheld device. And this is classified under pharmaceutical law, which is also Medi-Crime law, counterfeit Medi-Crime devices, biomedicine law, and the key human rights of the organ, genome, and genetic tests. International. It is key. Attorney, which is this and something which is extremely in after your patient station, but so this teaching explaining see that this that is is reads Section 4.6 I did a literature review of the pharmacokinetic parameters under the data protection law contravened. And the first piece of legal material that I use is the IBM model, the apparatus, entitled apparatus for delivering pharmaceuticals based on real-time monitoring of tissue cells. I classified this under the data protection law and examining the pharmacokinetic parameter, which clearly contravened the pharmaceutical law, which is also known as Medi-Crime Law or Counterfeit Medi-Crime Law, which also, in my opinion, includes the counterfeit Medi devices, which can also be manufactured in body after injection, for example, Conv and biomedicine law. Here is a diagram of the IBM drug delivery system to specific bodily tissue. In the context of the infra-chip genocide, large-scale land robbery, and the injection of COVAX and chip, you can visualize that this could be the model for how it can look like after injection, how it can possibly work in specific bodily tissue. So you can see over here that here is a measurement system with the capability to detect in a ring. And you can see here this term, the positron emitter. And I also mentioned this in conjunction with product names like Itron devices, Silver Spring devices, and also the architectural blueprint of, for example, Wormhole and all these hexagon 6 floor tiles. Here is the gamma photons. This device here is the controller or drug infusion pump. This device here is the computational processing. And here it shows a human skull, the human brain. And you can see that it is a tissue of interest in the target system. So the patent claims that it is able to target a particular tissue of interest. Then it is measurement device that is in brain, as you can see over here, with the positron emitter. It has the capability, according to IBM, to process data. And from the processed data, this IBM chip claims that it is able to feature an extractor, such as the device here, and it has the ability to reference the signal to a desired tissue state. And again, it will go back to the controller, which is the drug infusion pump. Thus, this IBM neuromodulation pattern entitled Apparatus for Delivering Pharmaceuticals Based on Real-Time Monitoring of Tissue Cells reveals a criminal apparatus for the criminal administration of a drug transportation pharmaceuticals delivery system in a closed loop based on real-time monitoring, feedback, and administering to a bodily, for example, a targeted brain tissue, with the capability to track, measure the interaction between a drug and a specified bodily tissue in real time, with a feedback signal by electrical monitor, such as, in this case, a large-scale infra-chip genocide population 100 plus, COVAX chip circuitry, onto, for example, it can be an LCD screen monitor manufactured by micro machines remotely using Wi-Fi to monitor the brain activity via implants For example, the popularized term infamously the black neuralase by Elon Musk, or chemical means, for example, graphene oxide, silicon substrate of the IBM type. That is a chemical made monitor devices. For example, implanted biosensor or a positron emission tomography, or PET for short, scanner used to compare the binding of a dopamine to receptor associated with response to painful stimulation or pain modulatory capacity tracer to the caudate nucleus following amphetamine challenge in health test subjects. Also with the ability to adjust the rate of drug delivery real time to achieve a desired state of drug tissue interaction. We'll look at the legal definition of controller applied to this positron tomography, PET, in brain. That can possibly be what is happening with the COVAX injection. The controller has a current to the desired tissue state. And thus closing the gap. The IBM model drug delivery mechanism apparatus requires firstly a real-time data processor. Second, a measurement device for measuring the state of bodily tissue. Thirdly, a control system, that is the information handling device for processing measurements. A, to compute the amount of drug to be delivered, called computational processing. In order to B, close the gap between the current tissue state and the desired tissue state, using fourthly a control drug infusion device, for example, a pump or controller, with access to the victim's blood stream. The legal analysis of this radioactive drug. Again, reference to the legal definition of controller or method of data protection, which includes a computation logic, which is a proportional integral differential algorithm. The pub ID's patients, or rather victim, positron emission from a radioactively labeled drug, gives the measurements needed using a measurement device. For example, a ring of positron emission detectors, such as measurement 110, which you can see over here. It is a measuring device, and you can also see in figure 125 the ability to process data in brain. So this ring of positron emission detectors or measurement 110 B has the capability to adjust the drug rate delivery based on real-time measurement or dosage adjustment in order to achieve an illegal desired concentration within the tissue of interest or the desired state of criminal drug tissue interaction. Let me repeat. It claims to have the ability not just to adjust the drug rate delivery, that is the speed, based on the real-time measurement, but or in other words, the dosage adjustment, but that it can adjust the dosage in order to achieve an illegal desired concentration within the tissue of interest or a desired state of criminal drug tissue interaction. C, it claims to have the ability to achieve a particular tissue drug state. D, a particular fraudulently labeled, thus hence can be classified under a pharmaceutical law or counterfeit Medi-Crime product, and also a popularized infamous term as part of the CDC patented process, for example, and also appears in some of the very infamous annual PACE, cannot PACE as a therapeutic result, quote unquote. Using high performance, extensive computational processing 120. High performance processing computation 120 over here. With extract feature at 135, which is over here. Extract specific brain tissue features measurements and compares this extracted specific brain tissue feature to some predetermined reference signal. Here is the predetermined reference signal in order to achieve the desired tissue state. In order to compute a control signal using standard control algorithm, for example, a proportional, integral, differential, or a combination. Short-term PID, proportional, integral, differential, or PID control algorithm, again adds to the very comprehensive depth of the legal, actual, and accurate meaning of the legal term controller that is omitted of data protection law. The choice of control algorithm is based on a physician's prescriptive objectives. For example, to achieve a steady state drug concentration. Second, for minimal setting time. Third, avoidance of overshoot. Again, the legal definition exam of the legal term controller in GDPR law, computation logic, regression, artificial neural networks, race mapping, population 0 to 100 plus. The reference signal reflects the desired state of the tissue of interest in the brain region using PET imaging to project first when, and secondly, what level it will achieve a steady state of interaction in the tissue of interest using data analysis, for example, regression methods or artificial neural networks mapping. This first point on time and second on concentration level at which the steady state is achieved is a direct function of the infusion rate of the drug. Second, it is calculated in advance before PET scanning by drawing multiple blood samples in the initial stages of pharmaceutical exposure. Thus, thirdly, the mapping analysis of individual population data and optimal trajectory to the desired brain tissue state on a national basis theoretically is computed for the pharmaceutical drug delivery of bioweapon 1, COVID, and bioweapon 2, COVAX, erroneously labeled as quote-unquote therapy, and hence can be classified as under pharmaceutical law or counterfeit Medi-Crime product law. The legal judgment. Firstly, the real-time monitoring of steady-state concentration in the reference tissue via the PET brain imaging, secretly done in a remote clinical setting. To achieve the drugs ring satellite tech bank criminals' desired state of criminal drug tissue interaction. Second, to achieve a particular, for example, a plausible chimeric or chimeric-like or other programmatic approach as mentioned in WB, short form for World Bank. Tissue state, calculated in advance, is potentially open to high risk of abuse, for example, from the drugs money type of bank criminals. The system can be funded by criminals that replicate the blueprint type as seen earlier on in my table of legal sampling that can plausibly rob world nations' economies and commercial banks' deposits, also including Tier 1, which I've already covered, using examples like Bank of England and Bank of Russia, and Tier 2 commercial banks that can include business accounts of the perpetrator's intent on using medical crime technology companies, for example, SE Stock Exchange. There are many two-letter pay stock exchange, killer fraud exchanges, trading, NASDAQ type stock listed by investment fraud institutions that can, if you figure this out, they can collect many times over worldwide. For fraud trading, exchanges of criminal medical tech fraud business accounts. That is just some plausible possibility. For example, the COVAX chip is severely disabled insurance theft by computer force from those imposter title card installed for that specific criminal purpose exchange for money's collection. Multiplied by the total number of years of expansionist ambition, followed by satellite tech electronic bank stash. They can possibly suppress a total number of zeros, multiplied by 500 years, 1,000 years, in the first place under pharmaceutical law or Medi-Crime law. Second is that the intrusive implants, for example, the COVAX chip, circuitry in micro-scale constructed by microbots, remotely programmed by Wi-Fi, even without the targets knowing. As mentioned by the medical evidence that even for those that did not take the COVAX injection, a microchip can be formed inside the bodily cells, including exposure to Wi-Fi, and it is also found in many dentist products, in rainwater, in salt water. It's compulsory for actual monitoring of the brain activity. For example, the engineered bioweapon tool COVAX, infamous popularized term neurolase in brain in liquid to solidified metallic crystal implants. This bodily invasion, fraudulently labeled as quote therapeutic, utilizes high-performance computing system that potentially access population 100+ nations' brain cells on a neural network for mass drug abuse to activate painful stimulation under biomedicine law, or it is also known as an alternative name, counterfeit Medi-Crime product. In other words, it is not medicine. It is harmful and injurious. The legal preliminary conclusions and judgments. Thirdly, other criminal space acts include in conjunction with the machine analysis for firstly drugs infusion cells drug infused for remote millimeter waves, EQ or E-shock. Second, the cells hybridization, for example, possible chimeric mutation, as can be seen in the North America samples of the elongated blood clots, proving that cells mutation has been committed. So a plausibly chimeric or chimeric-like mutation into a B slave, this will be to fit in conjunction with another chapter that I'll be doing at the hospital synapse chapters, where I will be examining the Microsoft 666 pattern of a sample of what a B slave can be like, including a B slave teleportation to a space colony. Fourthly, the E-bodily lock on computation logic parameters, as can be seen in this diagram. The vectors to self-generate computer money. This is exact description in the 666 Microsoft pattern. And the pattern showing this self-generate computer money is a type of enslavement, labor of all kinds. And fifth, the dev automation machine system. It is to detect any sort of resistance or struggle for freedom, etc. All these criminal acts are completely illegal globally. The next legal evidence that I will examine is the IBM neuromodulation model, dispensing drugs from a companion diagnostic link smart pill. What is a smart pill? So this is examined under pharmaceutical law or Medi-Crime law or counterfeit Medi-Crime device or biomedicine law, data protection law, pharmaceutical pharmacokinetic parameter contravene. So looking at the legal exhibit 1 blueprint, the IBM Figure 4 smart pill system of a COVAX chip or core, dispensing drugs using, for example, a neural link net companion diagnostic. So this is the diagram of the smart pill system, which can be, for example, the COVAX chip or core. The chip is a core that dispenses drugs using a neural link net, or NN for short, companion diagnostic. And you can see over here that there is a handheld device 250, which can be classified as the legal definition of a controller. The IBM pattern dispensing drugs from a companion diagnostic link smart pill depicts a smart pill system under the neural network 100. The smart pill 100 is communicatively coupled to smart pills 460A to F. So the smart pills are spread out in the body. 460 from A, B, C, D, E, F. The smart pill 100 system dispensing drugs from a companion diagnostic link smart pill is communicatively coupled to smart pills that is spread out in the body for 460A to F, which is located in multiple places, which is also in a way very much like some of the bank logos that I will be examining that is spread out throughout entire continent. In multiple places, see biomarkers targeted. So these are the biomarkers. Of the patient slash quote unquote therapeutic victim. So as it spreads out, it creates a pill area network. Each is configured with a different encoding scheme via encryption and decryption in order to be identified by their respective locational transmission sent to the SmartPill 100 and handheld device 250. So here is the handheld device 250. Legal analysis of the SmartPill system with Neuralink companion diagnostic, the legal opinion and legal analysis. This is unethical malpractice. Firstly, the biomarker drug dose combination is meant to prey upon the most quote. It is a wrong term to use and it is a quote from the patent promising. It is an incorrect word and can be used from the unethical patient situation achieved. Is that the advantage yes, secondly, the application. Legal experimentation is firstly, to conduct experimental protocol of the software application expressed in, for example, logical statements, formula algorithms is used to generate new smart pill illegal programs that is programmable, carried out by simply clicking the buttons, for example, modify, change, replace the current software application logic. IBM code on the fly. B, design. R, C, remotely performed from a clinical setting. This is the reason why it, in my second point of this unethical malpractice, or in other words, Medi-Crime Act, thus constituting a Medi-Crime Act under the Medi-Crime Law or Counterfeit Medi-Product, or in other words, under the Pharmaceutical Law, and also classified under International Criminal Law, that is chip genocide, systematic chip genocide, systematic crime, widespread systematic crime, and chip war crime. Also includes the component where the program provider secretly conducts an international crime experimentation, which is punishable by weapons kill. That this perpetrator has the ability to conduct the experimental protocol of the software application. And the software application will be expressed in logical statements, formula, or algorithms. And it also states that he has the ability to generate a new smart pill. That is illegal programs that is programmable. And you will realize that this term programmable resonates with the WB World Bank multi-programmatic approach. It's the exact terms used in the WB document. It's carried out by simply clicking the buttons, for example, code, modify, change, or replace the current software application logic, and also code IBM on the fly. They can do it instantly. The designs are remotely performed from a clinical setting, in other words, secretly and remotely. In other words, no individual patient, according to IBM code. The IBM, even in this pattern, claims that no one, including the individual patient, need ever know who administered which drug. Emphasis. This is obviously medical malpractice in disguise and outright murder or a kill potential on a very large scale or worldwide scale, and resonates with the term war on the World Bank or the World or Health Organization that also champions or showed a diagrammatic useful blueprint that I extracted concerning the bad cert. On a large scale, organ damage and mutation of the cells without the victims in country A to Z ever knowing what is the identity of the killer that administered which programmable drug combination to the targeted bodily cells. The law on the biomedicine law, Oviedo Convention Model Protocol Explanatory Report, the Smart Pill System, Legal Exhibit 2 on DNA sequencing. Under the Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Dignity of the Human Being with respect to the application of biology and medicine, concerning the organ, the genome, and the genetic tests, or the biomedicine law, place of signing Oviedo Convention in 1997, the Smart Pill System or the DNA sequencing system, the mRNA. So I wanted to write this to show you that the short term is called Biomedicine Convention Law, signed in 1997. Place of signing is Oviedo, Spain. However, it will be good to also know what is the full title. The full title is called the Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Dignity of the Human Being with respect to the application of biology and medicine. And in this document, it also covers organ, genome, and genetic tests. So under Section 4.6.2, the IBM dispensing drugs from a smart pill, the legal exhibit 2 of the smart pill system, in the IBM Figure 3 DNA sequencing or mRNA. Here is what the diagram can look like for under legal exhibit 2, the smart pill system or the DNA sequencing mRNA. Figure 3 shows the A tissue and fluid sample device 315 that extract tissue fluid samples of the patient. And the DNA sequencing solid state nanopore device 315, which actually also sounds very much like Singapore. So this 315 is a nanopore device that utilizes the tissue fluid samples for DNA sequencing genetic tests, while the smart pill is still inside the victim. Here is the tissue and fluid sample device 315. It has the capability to extract tissue and fluid samples of the patient. And here is the DNA sequencing solid-state nanopore device 310 that utilizes the tissue fluid samples for DNA sequencing genetic tests, while the smart pill is still inside the victim. The actuation device 320. The actuation device 320 uses piezoelectric devices, which refers to crystalline materials. See IBM model phase change material that elongate to expel the respective components dirty under figure 1. I will also be mentioning the crystalline materials under the Synapse of China, where I'll be showing some crystalline materials the term synapse is to show that it is an in-body chip currency, which ties in with the Microsoft 666 beast enslavement, outer space colony teleportation sort of concept. So the crystalline materials has a phase change material. I will also be explaining this with several other diagrams in other country states samples. So the inventors. So the phase change material elongate to expel the respective components 30 in figure 1 through electric current flows from power source 230 in figure 2, which obviously is illegally controlled by the controller in figure 2, controller 10. The law of biomedicine law, or the Oviedo Convention Model Protocol Explanatory on the with reference to the SmartPill system DNA sequencing or mRNA. So what I'm referring here to is the explanatory report of the biomedicine Oviedo Convention Model Protocol. So the law here that I refer to is the biomedicine law. The place of signing is Oviedo, Spain in 1997. The final solution is 2020-2025. The full title is called the Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Dignity of the Human Being with respect to the application of biology and medicine, which covers organ, genome, genetic tests. The law under the biomedicine law, with the full title, Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Dignity of the Human Being with respect to the application of biology and medicine, Convention on Human Rights and Biomedicine covering organ, genome, and genetic tests. Under legal exhibit to the Smart Pill system, looking at Article 13 of the Biomedicine Oviedo Convention or DNA sequencing mRNA, pertaining to DNA sequencing solid-state nanopore device with the smart pill still inside the targeted victim. Under Article 13, Chapter 4, Human Genome, this is an intervention seeking to modify the human genome or of the descendants is an offense. Why I inserted this legal expansion is because it doesn't just modify the human genome of the present victim. It can pass on to its descendants. So it's a multiple offense. Pertaining to drug-infused VEX tissues and cells of interest, under Article 13, Chapter 4 of the Human Genome, it is an intervention seeking to modify the human genome or of its descendants is an offense. Under Article 13, Chapter 4 of the Human Genome seeking to modify the human genome for diagnosis, which is a term that you see in the CDC patented process and also in the infamous universities that committed genocide and all large B-range sums for committing genocide in a no such research. The quote-unquote diagnosis, quote-unquote therapeutic, quote-unquote preventive, quote-unquote treatment in these genocidal CDC pattern and banned universities is a false set. Thus, it is a criminal intentional procedure. Under Article 4 definitions, classified under pharmaceutical law, Medi-Crime law, counterfeit Medi-products, it is a threat to the public under the Moscow Convention. The term medical device for the purpose of quote-unquote prevention becomes meaningless since both the bioweapon 1 COVID and bioweapon 2 COVAX chip core, graphene oxide and excipient ingredient silicon which I extensively explained with diagrams and photographic medical evidence, was manufactured intentionally in conjunction with the combination of solidified chip or core circuitry through microconstruction by micro machines linked to the neural network. Article 12, AI prediction, genetic test falsehood. According to the removal of disease, bioweapon 1 COVID, mRNA genetic manipulation, alteration, radiofrequency kill adjustment, the implants of the bioweapon 2 COVAX, the word predictive in Article 12 heading with respect to the genetic tests is clearly speaking of an AI machine prediction in the context, including the neuromorphic system. The pub ID is obviously lying. I repeat, there is Article 12 inside the Oviedo Convention, which is called the Biomedicine Law for short, or the expansion full title is called the Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Dignity of the Human Being with respect to the application of biology and Medicine Convention on Human Rights and Biomedicine covering organ genome and genetic tests. There is a particular article called Article 12, AI prediction and genetic tests, but I'm stating the omission or loophole here that it is actually a falsehood. Because pertaining to the removal of the disease, which is bioweapon 1 COVID, is a mRNA genetic manipulation, alteration, radiofrequency kill adjustment. The implants are the bioweapon 2 COVAX, which you can see in the SmartPill spread out area in the body. And the word predictive in Article 12 heading with respect to the genetic test is clearly speaking of the AI machine prediction in context including neuromorphic system. So the pub ID is obviously lying, and here are some of the optional lies such as below. The test predictive of genetic diseases. The first line is quote to the ID subject as a carrier of the bioweapon 2 COVAX chip genocide or chip war crime, or gene responsible for bioweapon 1 mRNA COVID disease. First of all, it is not carrying the victim is not carrying a disease. The victim was injected with a bioweapon 2 COVAX, which solidified into a chip, and it became a chip genocide, chip war crime if it is injected into a military personnel, and it is also on a widespread population, continent-wide size, so it is a systematic and widespread crime. Systematic and widespread chip crime. And it is responsible for bioweapon 1 mRNA COVID disease, which is incorrect because it is not a disease. It is it alters the cell structure, and it does this by using radiofrequency with the injection of a solidified chip that can result in killing the human being on a widespread basis. So it is a chip genocide, systematic crime, and chip war crime in the military personnel. The second line is that it quote to detect a genetic disposition. The pub ID is seeking the cell areas for attack. In other words, I'm showing you what the pub ID is underlying meaning is that he intends his real criminal purpose was to seek certain cell areas to attack the human body or the targeted person. Or subsequently, the pub ID intend for no defense because the pub ID knows that the person is defenseless when it comes to a radiofrequency cell alteration, etc. And hence it's a quote unquote, it is not a disease, bioweapon 1 COVID and COVAX chip. Line number 3 may only quote unquote be performed. And this is a lie because, as you know, that the satellite telecommunications radio frequency, Wi-Fi, communications and the near field communications, or NFC, it runs on a 247.365 per year. So it cannot be a May only. It is running 247.365 for health, quote unquote. So it is quite the opposite. It is harmful and injurious, meaning the constant endangerment to life, bioweapon causing organ damage, and death stats, which I also inserted and I will also discuss. In other words, it is for criminal purposes. It's scientific. Yes. It's actually that's a task. I mean, AI. Next, I think many terms. CRISPR DNA is stated. Translation. Although the translation is referring to日本 or San, and there are also other terms with such reference, like Hong Kong is Hong Kong, so it's referring to maybe something to do with the nose pores, for example. So if it's a nose pore, then again there is the term pore appearing. And there is some computation concerning this large-scale land robbery and the false money circulation with the falsified targeted country names. Next, let's look at Article 21, protection of the persons not able to consent to organ removal, which is falsehood. Under Article 21, protection of persons not able to consent to organ removal, Chapter 6, organ and tissue removal from living donors for transplantation purposes or that is illegal motives, pertaining to samples of tissue fluid extract with the smart pill or smart vax micro machine or smart device still inside the target, as can be seen in the diagram. Line 1 is that no organ or tissue removal may be carried out on a person without capacity to consent. That is totally false to organ removal because the victim has already been chipped in body and organs and tissues can be removed. And certain states will have unfortunate illegal persons that claim to be the gov that can like stipulate with the criminal purpose of trying to harvest their organs. For example, in such kind of like worker storms, which is why the WRC is also has this advocates and in practice carries out the blueprint and framework for large-scale land rock locations for large-scale land diffusion bank cards, so that you bury in your correct authentic bloodline lineage, then claim and bury your organs in the backyard, such as also combined with this past ancestral practice of ancestral archives, so you have a correct land claim rather than in a refill situation where they will spoil the organs intentionally and refill the worker storm units or stack common ship pipe unit or kills the person that purchased a second-hand stolen land, such as in my area. Rather you register for a correct land claim where you bury organs and you have a correct land registration that is for lineage and genetic preservation of your bloodline, and that is your real land claim, and your organs will not be harvested. It will be can be safely buried in the backyard. A legal review of the above combined SE QR code chip replica times 2 blueprints of first a drugs dispatch, a pharma Medi-Crime delivery system from the diagnostic smart pill, for example, the graphene oxide, silicon oxide microchip as already established in this document. The PUB ID deceptively labeled neuromodulation likely is a radio frequency tuning, etc. Second is the DNA sequencing, the mRNA gene alteration, organ damage depth. Third is the controller, the neural link companion diagnostic, namely the cell phone, the telecommunication device that you see, for example, in the handheld controller device that you see over here. That has the capability of DNA sequencing, and mRNA handheld device is the 250 with a wireless communication signal to the spread out smart pill area network. I'd also like to also run through a quick one of the figure 5 flow chart. That when a smart pill is introduced into the body of the patient, the smart pill determines and or receives from the handheld device a companion diagnostic data on the patient in real time. Based on the companion diagnostic data determined, the software application logic determines the treatment for the patient and sends a signal to the proper dispensers. Based on the treatment determined by the software application 215, the signals are sent or not sent to the various dispenser. The pill actions are taken by the dispensers to release the drug. Here you can see is the API. So in connection with programming, and there's a database and a companion diagnostic data with a memory and the patient categories. So, the legal review of the above combined SE killer chip code replica of ×2 blueprints of drugs dispatch or pharmaceutical Medi-Crime law classification delivery system from a diagnostic quote-unquote CDC patented an infamous Van University SmartPill graphene oxide silicon oxide microchip. The pub ID deceptively labeled neuromodulation likely is a radiofrequency tuning. Second is a DNA sequencing mRNA gene alteration that can cause organ damage and death, thus under international criminal law, and that the controller is a handheld device, electronic handheld devices. It is a Neuralink companion diagnostic. For example, a cell phone or telecommunication devices, the electronic devices that are handheld, etc. Fourth is a real-time monitoring drug-infused tissue desired state, for example, the drug bioweapon COVAX chip or core programmable remotely using Wi-Fi cell towers linked to the binary coded satellites from the pub ID from the computer core or chip. Next, under Article 6.5, quote-unquote, withdrawn at any time and in the best interest. Under Article 6.5, protection of the persons not able to consent. Under Chapter 2, consent. They lack the capacity and subjects to death threats or assassination, as also I will have a brief mention of these assassinated public figures and the population 100 plus neurogrid, especially those prior to the COVAX genocide, chip genocide. They held some sort of in connection with the WHO imposter health card title, which is quite the opposite. That is, they are carrying out bioweapon, chip genocide, chip systematic widespread crime, and chip war crime. So bioweapon 1 is COVID, and bioweapon 2 is COVAX. There's that reports of firstly organ damage, quote-unquote diseased cells and brain blood clot, severely disabled CARES Act variance insurance tab of pub ID that pays country names, for example, the population 100 plus neurogrid and the radio frequency kill death stats, which I will also reveal. The first line is that, quote, not able to consent. Paraphrase, there is no opportunity to disagree with the chip genocidal perpetrators without knowledge of the pub ID's intent or even remote secretive criminal act, and it also premeditated in advance. For example, as early as found in the S records 1999. And also you will realize that something is not right if people are building workers' dorm on a large scale basis using lion land, for example, which is not the correct layout for the lion dollar land. The second line is, quote, withdraw at any time. Quote, in the best interest of a person concerned by the pub ID is total falsehood. The selective cell taxing for the bioweapon 2 COVAX chip, selective or non-selective lens scan is killing. Radio frequency lens scan killing. Intervention. Also, withdrawal is impossible at any time. It is already floating in outer space due to the irreversible change, according to medical doctors also. According to the substantial number of victims on chip genocide, chip war crime, the death stats. Let's see. The satellite PERP ID will be doing lens scan, telecommunication devices, controller, and a two-tiered data transmission in-brain to outgoing and incoming. Next, I examine the Article 5 freely withdrawal. Contravening Article 5, the general rule under Chapter 2, consent of being able to freely withdraw. In fact, there is no consent, it is forced and mandated. For example, other ways to force this is to suggest or hint or make it mandatory, otherwise the person will risk the losing of jobs, for example. And a fraudulent premeditated Medi-Crime Act, it is not medicine. It is misleading falsified documents for Medi-Crime export imports of supply chain, which I will also be showing evidence of this. To manufacture externally and embody a chip genocide, chip war crime, and profitable patented process, for example, a hospital process that is false, diagnostic, preventive, therapeutic, criminal profits. I examine Article 16.4 in form of rights and safeguards. Under Article 16.5, the Chapter 5 of heading Scientific Research, no persons were informed of their rights. The safeguards were prescribed by law, such as informing they were undergoing global experimental research. This is, of course, punishable under international criminal law. And under Article 5, the General Rule, Chapter 2, consent. No written consent were given expressly. Specifically, documents were with no free withdrawal of consent, since no consent were given to begin with available, since it was a mandatory fax dispatch by chat text, PERP ID, or telecommunications, and erroneously labeled as health, which in fact is bioweapon, card holders, titles holders, meaning title holders, the chip genocide imposters, MD, criminal faculties, live-in refugees inside Ireland, for example, pre-med crime. I examine Article 17 may be undertaken if ... conditions ... are met. Under Article 17, Chapter 5, misleading nature of the term scientific research. Protection of persons not able to consent, for example, underage school children and university schooling subjects to illegal scientific educational based in computer book experimentation of AI killed by self-titled electronic GAF, or usually they will just paste three-letter GOV perpetrators, word with AI inside dollars, for example, recruits online, criminal faculty, they also use popularized public figures like Klaus Schwab in the WEF. There's a WEF vector diagram that I extracted, which is useful for this legal discussion as evidence of chip genocide, chip war crime. The PERP ID is deserving of a chip linked to a judge computer. For example, there were 2 copies of text specification in the WEF that I extracted. It is a brochure, it is not a text specification. The Medi-Crime Convention states that such research can be undertaken on persons without capacity consent, if all conditions are true. In other words, illegal experimentation is being conducted without the permission of those unable to object, refuse against nations' wills. Due to the perpetrator's global premeditated act for perhaps 60 years, they are repeat offenders. They set up the neurogrid, neuromorphic system, the neural core chip, remotely programmable, which resonates with the WB document programmatic approach. Via Wi-Fi cell towers, neural link to the binary coded satellites from the computer core or chip. Article 17.1 code does not object. Pertaining to condition Article 17, the underage or incapacity to consent person concerned does not object. It's the same argument as that of adults and individuals. They do not have the capacity to stop the radio frequency kill once injected. And to begin with, they didn't really have a choice if they were given the alternate option of being jobless, for example, that it's mandatory for them to get a vaccine in order to get a job, for example, and the short duration during which they had to make a choice, or they were coerced into getting the injection under the erroneous falsehood that it was a disease that they had to be vaccinated to gain protection from, including even corporations. There's legal materials written concerning how they had to fight to get the COVAX chip, which was actually chip genocide, and thinking that it was actually a medical defense. And organ damage from neurochip genocide, research on experimental death. So experimental death is punishable under international criminal law. That is, no one can consent to AI or neuromorphic chip core circuitry kill criminal act committed remotely, which tantamount to murder or genocide. That is, no one can consent to murder. Under Article 17.2, research has not the potential to produce direct benefit to health. Under Article 17, protection of persons without capacity to consent, as stipulated in Article 17.12, the potential to produce real and direct benefit to health. The academic journal lab reports showed that the kill potential and medical reports showed deaths, organ damage due to COVAX core chip, remotely programmable via Wi-Fi cell towers, Neuralink to binary code satellites from computer core chip, Global Criminal Act of Neurogrid setup, neuromorphic system with remote access to physical cell phones or solidified chip injected in liquid form such as COVAX A to Z population 100+. Examining Article 17.2.1, research quote scientific understanding afflicted with the same disease and conditions. Under the unfulfilled void condition of Article 17, the necessary authorization is provided, given specifically and in writing, in context of entire nation's 100+, which are the perpetrators subjects on a national level, unauthorized by 1 to 2 individuals, illegal signing of void documents with headings. The educational, scientific, cultural void documents archived in the building, masquerading its criminal agenda hidden from underage and adults' nation's view. And I speak this from my area's context and also in worldwide context. That using a sample, legal sample, I realize this is also the case at the national level, which is unauthorized by 1 to 2 individuals signing without even the public knowing, and also at the worldwide basis that they were at a meeting signing void documents with headings such as educational, scientific, and cultural, which is void documents. They are usually archived in the building, and it masquerades its criminal agenda, which is hidden from underage, which is also this contravene. It is hidden from the underage and the adults in worldwide nations' view. For instance, like in my area, you actually have to pay to read the document, and without awareness of this document even existing, it is not publicly available, which is illegal. Such documents have to be publicly available free of charge. Also, the pre-planned signing in the same said location, for example, Spain. And also you will realize that no such research being conducted, which is an actual COVAX chip killing, they rob about in the B range. And as I mentioned, when such signing of documents, it has to be publicly available. That is the law. Also, the pre-planned signing in the same state location, Spain. So this matching location of a series of Google Spain complaints and judgments can indicate that the perpetrator has criminal access or control over both documents. That is, the signing of this educational, scientific, cultural, or convention, or Oviedo Convention in Spain, it also happens to coincidentally match with the Google Spain judgments, can indicate that the perp has criminal access and control over both documents, locations, and the voteless illegal persons being set up with individual signatures is not representative of the respective entire of nation's will and complicit for self-gain. It is no coincidence that the perpetrator planned the locational meet. Article 17 does not object. Pertaining to condition Article 17, the underage or incapacity to consent person. Concern does not object. It is the same argument as that of the adults and individuals that do not have the capacity to stop the radiofrequency kill or organ damage from neurochip genocide, research on experimental death. That is, no one can consent to AI or neuromorphic chip core circuitry kill criminal act committed remotely, which tantamount to murder. That is, no one can consent to murder. Article 17.2, research has not the potential to produce direct benefit to health. Under Article 17, protection of persons without capacity to consent, as stipulated in Article 17.1.2, potential to produce real and direct benefit to health. Academic journal lab reports show that there is kill potential, and medical reports show that there is deaths, organ damage due to COVAX core chip. Remotely programmable by Wi-Fi cell towers, Neuralink to binary coded satellites from the computer core chip. Global Criminal Act of Neurogrid being set up, and the neuromorphic system with remote access to the physical cell phones or solidified chip injected in liquid form, such as COVAX A to Z, population 100 plus. Thus, pertaining to Article 17.2, where the research has not the potential to produce results of a direct benefit to health, it is a lie. Bioweapon 1 is COVID and Bioweapon 2 is COVAX. Such criminal scientific research may not be authorized. This is a WLC insert that is omitted of the Oviedo Convention. May not, which is omitted of the convention, be authorized. Criminal authorization is auto void. It is death penalty. Insert illegal subject to conditions discussed above and additional conditions discussed as follows. Article 17.2.1, research scientific understanding afflicted with the same disease conditions. Under Article 17.2, protection of persons not able to consent to research. It is stated where the fake research does not produce results of direct benefit to the health bioweapon 1 and 2. It continues to state that such WLC insert here, criminal radiofrequency kill may not be authorized. The word not is omitted of the convention. Biomedicine Convention, Oviedo Convention, Spain. And adds subject to, it is a lie, conditions are automatic. The lie, it is stated that the fake research chip genocidal chip systematic crime and chip war crime radiofrequency kill to contribute to improvement in the scientific understanding of the individual's conditions, disease. It is not a disease, it's a bioweapon, and it cannot be a justification. That is, scientific understanding is not a justification for radiofrequency killing a person. And it is also not a disease to attain results of benefit or to other persons afflicted with the same disease. Article 17.2.1, the research has the aim of significant improvement in the false statement, scientific understanding. In the same age category of ID bioweapon 1 and 2, the intent is affliction with the same disease. Here, the disease is injected lab-manufactured mRNA, bioweapon 1 COVID, combined with bioweapon 2 COVAX or chip genocide radiofrequency or organ damage, etc. The word scientific points to the same said illegal auto-void backs chip genocide, chip systematic crime, and chip war crime. Signing of auto-void war crime ID, educational, cultural, and scientific documents arranged by the perpetrator, for example, the location meet, the illicit usage of a one-time flight destinations meeting between two strangers or a few more. There are no nations involved. That is an illegal 1-2 person. They were doing auto-void signing. Also, it is administered with a solidified chip against A to Z. And or physical cell phones or computer interface for neural cells, AI learning or AI kill switch. The line 2 is that it is stated a WRC insert. The research entails a gross error with minimal risk. It is of extremely high risk. Thus, Article 17.22, the criminal brain radiofrequency kill research clearly entails the highest risk on a global scale, in particular targeted at those POP-ID precise targets, namely those that are unable to consent, that is, they are minors, they are incapacity, they are incapacitated. Under Article 6, the same mentioned in Article 17. Under Article 19.1, the POP-ID term quote-unquote therapeutic. Under Article 19.2, Chapter 6, organ and tissue removal from living donors for transplantation purposes, it is stated that one, removal of organs or tissues for transplantation purposes is carried out for therapeutic benefit, and under Article 19.2.2, the necessary consent given expressly and specifically in written form or before an official body, no necessary as required by law legal consent were given to 100 plus A to Z nations individuals, expressly or specifically either in written form or in the context of neuromorphic system, 5G network, open damage, death stats, contribution, or before an official body which does not exist. That has the capability to disband 5G on a worldwide scale despite the worldwide ban official stance up. Article 21, the human body parts financial gain. Under Article 21, Chapter 7, prohibition of financial or fin gain disposal of human body parts. And I also link this to my area, which is the financial crime tower, in conjunction with the HEP collapse plot, which is advanced DCMAN. And the financial crime tower has these life as organ insurance. And also it matches the Medicare and the CARES Act. The bodily parts are prohibited from giving rise to financial. This is the Article 21. For example, the global POP-ID scientific damage or depth experimentation, for example, the tissue cells, the genes harvest for money, or even the concept or criminal thought of a refill of the organs, secondhand of the large-scale illegal structures, criminal medical doctors practicing Medi-Crime hospitals, pertaining to the removal of the disease from the bioweapon 1 COVID and then bioweapon 2 COVAX, radio frequency, organ damage, and organ death. Under Article 22, disposal of removed human body parts. Pertaining to Article 22 on the disposal of a removed bodily part, it is clearly stated that in the disposal of a removed bodily part may be stored and used for a purpose other than that for which it was. It is stated only if done with appropriate information. This is the case, the appropriate information was omitted. The consent procedures were non-existent in the setup of satellite or telecommunications or radio frequency Wi-Fi near-field communications data transmission that can be set up overnight, causing neurochip genocide, chip systematic widespread crime, and chip warfare. Also, the consent procedures were non-existent. Overall, the disposal of a removed bodily part is without consent procedures. The criminal medical apparatus facilitating the neuromorphic system, the neural network with drugs delivery system is premeditated to precisely give rise to Article 21 financial gain. Instances include financially charging the bodily cells, for example, see the Microsoft 666 cryptocurrency system for drugs delivery or for drugs delivered. In particular for drugs delivered. See the IBM dispensing drugs from a diagnostic link smart pill with programmable software remotely administered combined with, say, a robotic killer. AI neural cells computation of the drug cells desired drug death state in the cells or mutation. B is severely disabled programmable charges times total number of years with beyond targeted geographical lands 100 plus population for the invasion. C is considered the misleadingly termed scientific facade with highly plausible cells abnormal growth that materialize. See Dr. Dixon's medical report and also in the North America blood clot, fibrous clots that reveal cells mutation and replication for sale, which is a banned financial gain. Contravening Article 21 continuously for a lifetime via Wi-Fi cell towers, A to C citizens' bodily sovereignty being contravened. Now let's look again at the IBM dispensing drugs from a smart pill. Legal Exhibit 3, the smart pill system. The IBM Figure 1, the smart pill programmable release. The Legal Exhibit 3 smart pill system programmable release, and comparing with the contribution by Carl C, which I term it as the scaffold polymer networks. On the left-hand side is the IBM smart pill system programmable release. This is the smart pill programmable release on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side is Carl C contribution of the scaffold and the evidence of the polymer fiber networks. The IBM patent dispensing drugs from a companion diagnostic link smart pill is a multi-drug delivery device. It can be ingested by force, that is mandatory, otherwise a threat of a loss of jobs or eviction, or injection in terms of the for example, the dentistry products, which you inevitably inject a small amount, or for example, salt or rainwater that the medical doctors were able to prove with the medical aesthetic, the dentistry materials, and the even things like ingesting some rainwater that's exposed to Wi-Fi has microchip in it. And also, you can extend this logic to, for example, refrigerated meat. If the meat is exposed to Wi-Fi, if it can grow in a human body, it can grow in a piece of meat, for example. Or injected implantation solidified circuitry, bioweapon tool COVAX, or chip in the form of a smart pill as biomarkers. Graphene oxide neural net over population 100 plus, coupled to a companion diagnostic, is a Medi-Crime Act. So over here is the diagrammatical blueprint of smart pill. You can see here that I will go on to also explain that the smart pill, it doesn't just have to contain one sort of drug or a same type of drug. It can comprise of parasites, bacteria as well. There is also a controller and a dispenser. This is smart pill system control. The Criminal Act is to dispense an appropriate dosage of drug administered by a programmable, on-demand release computerized system from the smart pill in Figure 1. And previously, I've already shown that there is graphene oxide neural net over population 100 plus. It can be coupled to a companion diagnostic, and this is the Medi-Crime Act under Medi-Crime Convention law. And this particular pattern is called dispensing drugs from a companion diagnostic link smart pill. It is a multi-drug, meaning, as mentioned, it can also contain parasites, eggs, bacteria. Delivery system or device that can be ingested or implanted or injected into a solidified circuitry, for example, bioweapon tool for COVAX core chip. It can be also combined with the previous diagram that it is a biomarker inside the body, even though it is termed as a smart pill. The bio-inert material has to the biomimetic material phase change material. The biocompatible material surface functionalization enables the transformation of a bio-inert material into a biomimetic material, phase change material, or bioactive material by coupling the protein layers to the surface, for example, the COVAX protein mRNA, or coating the surface with self-assembling illegal micro-machines injected or ingested. See the medical doctor's evidence, peptide scaffolds. See the perfect match with evidence by Carl C. to land bioactivity and or cell attachment into a 3D matrix. So what is mentioned in this particular pattern is that it can coat the surface with self-assembling micro-machine was what was shown in the Dr. Nixon's evidence, medical evidence, but what is mentioned in this bio-inert material to biomimetic material phase change material is that it couples the protein layers to the surface, which is the COVAX, which can be the COVAX, protein mRNA, and coating the surface with self-assembling, which is the exact words in the pattern, peptide scaffolds. And this peptide scaffolds is found in the Carl C contribution of the evidence. Here you can see the peptide scaffold found in the COVAX, for example, Pfizer droplets. Here again is the polymer fiber networks. Which can lead or lend to bioactivity or cell attachment in 3D matrix. Plasma processing, polymers and silicon oxide. For instance, plasma processing is applied to the chemically inert materials, for example, polymers. Polyanhydrides, used as a drug delivery material and be a silicon oxide gel to graft different functional classifications to the SmartPill surface. So the polymer or polyanhydrides are used as part of the drug delivery material, and there's a mention of evidence by submissions by writers in this COVAX case that there is a gel detected. So the silicon oxide gel is to graft the different functional classifications to the SmartPill surface. Bio-inert material to biomimetic material phase change material. The biocompatible material surface functionalization enables the transformation of bio-inert material into a biomimetic material, phase change material, bioactive material by coupling the protein layers to the surface or the COVAX protein mRNA, or coating the surface with self-assembling, that is illegal micro-machines injected or ingested. See the evidence of medical doctor like Dr. Nixon, and Carl C's contribution of peptide scaffolds. This is a perfect match mentioned by the IBM pattern SmartPill to the scaffolds evidence by Carl C that can lead to bioactivity and or cell attachment 3D matrix. For instance, plasma processing is applied to chemically inert materials, for example, polymers, polyanhydrides. See a perfect match of the evidence on polymer fiber networks by Carl C. So, as a drug delivery material and be a silicon oxide gel to graft different functional classifications to the SmartPill surface. The legal analysis or the legal judgment of the self-assembling micro machines, megalithic pyramidal structures or polymers. This means the evidence of self-assembling micro machines manufacturing in 300 times reduction in real-time crystal-like LED, construction of a pyramidal structures, metallic metal grid solidified, that is a transmitter chip combined with polymers such as a drug delivery material, that is to spread the legal contents, dispersed throughout the bodily cells and bloodstream, likely function as a neural link to the neuromorphic system network with changeable programmable software for eShop and other programs classified under international criminal law. And also it is mentioned in the bioweapon document, the programmatic approach for chip programmable release genocide, systematic crime, and chip war. The legal judgment of the smart pill system programmable release, the IBM pattern of a dispensing drugs from a companion diagnostic link smart pill. Companion 30 is not meant to be limited to drugs only, but can include firstly stem cells, second viruses, third parasitic eggs for autoimmune response therapy, quote unquote, fourth parasites, fifth bacteria for colonization of the stomach and intestines, and six nanoparticles, seven drugs released in micro origami. See the Semen repeat pub cover brochures. What I mean by this is that there may be some sinister reason why some of the student company brochures is covered with origami. And the individual reservoirs 1 to 6, meaning because it is like a consistent war crimes declaration buildings architectural blueprint manifested in 3D. And the individual reservoirs 1 to 7 types combined with a lethal concoction that has the potential for A, gene alteration, mutation, death in cells, B, neuromodulation. Thus, the insertion of illegal materials targeted at bodily cells is under first, biomedicine law, second, pharmaceutical law, third, international criminal law, that is chip genocide, chip systematic crime, chip war crime, and in this particular case, combined infra as money or large-scale land robbery. That is comprises of two things: one, murder, land debt not paid, 1905-2026 with 1700 organ or colossal as pays as cannot pay as organs, and murder is one aspect. That is the old land debt for large-scale land robbery in conjunction with the large-scale, widespread, systematic chip genocide and chip war crime in the immediate aftermath, and also stealing the sums to carry out the large-scale land robbery, but the land itself stolen is also priceless. That is, the perp cannot, it's a perpetual minus debt for the perp that cannot complete repayment to the original lineage inhabitants, for example. The law on the biomedicine law or Oviedo Convention model protocol explanatory report on the smart pill system or the parasitic eggs bacterial programmable release, and you also see this term multi-programmatic approach in the WB document, and you also realize that there is a respawn of the WBWT times 4, the first one being the WTNY. The law. Biomedicine Law, place of signing in 1997, Oviedo, Spain. The full title is Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Dignity of the Human Being with respect to the application of biology and medicine, the Convention on Human Rights and Biomedicine. Legal Exhibit 3, the Smart Pill System. The Parasitic Eggs and Bacterial Programmable Release. Pertaining to the DNA sequencing solid state nanopore device with the smart pill still inside the target. Under Article 13, Chapter 4, covering human genome, an intervention seeking to modify the human genome or of descendants is an offense. Under Article 16.5, protection of persons undergoing research, Chapter 5, scientific research, global COVAX chip or call. No persons will inform of their rights, safeguards prescribed by law, that they were undergoing global experimental death research or known deaths kill operation. Under Article 5, no written consent was given expressly, specifically document since it was a mandatory VAX dispatch by the title holders that were illegitimate impostors for criminal purpose that insist on supplying and manage to dupe the global community into a VAX death. That is a chip genocide, chip systematic widespread crime, and chip war crime. Organ damage as a means to retaining the jobs or obtaining jobs as a source of income and livelihood. Under Article 18, research on the embryos in vitro. Pertaining to the parasitic eggs in the smart pill system, under Human Rights and Biomedicine Law, Article 18, Chapter 5, Systematic Scientific Research on embryos in vitro, the creation of human embryos for research purposes is prohibited. Pertaining to the purpose capacity to contain 3 parasitic eggs in the smart bag system. Under Article 18, Chapter 5, Scientific Research on embryos in vitro, the creation of human embryos for research purposes is prohibited. Article 19, Organ Removal. Under Article 19.2, Chapter 6, Organ and Tissue Removal from Living Donors for Transplantation Purposes, there was no necessary consent which is required by law or legally, expressed and specifically either in written form or before an official body. Pertaining to samples of tissue and fluid extract with the smart bags micro machine or smart device still inside the target under Article 20.1, Chapter 6, Organ and Tissue Removal from Living Donors for Transplantation Purposes or Motives. No organ or tissue removal may be carried out on persons without capacity to consent, which is an auto-void consent to organ removal. With this, I end this portion. I will come back with the pharmaceutical law and the Medi-Crime law in the Moscow Convention Model Protocol Explanatory Report on the Smart Pill System, on the legal exhibit for the legal definition of controller handheld device. Thank you.